Call to order a special board meeting of the Board of Education, Pleasantville District 107, on Thursday, January 30th, 2014, at 7 p.m.
Mrs. Barker? Here. Mrs. Hauk?
Here.
Mr. Morabley?
Here.
Mrs. Nelson?
Mrs. Nelson? Yes, here.
Mrs. Tegmeyer? Here. Mrs. Volante?
Yes.
Mr. Gilman?
Here. All right. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item on the agenda is open forum. Anyone who'd like to address the board, please feel free. All right, next item is item number 4 on our agenda, review Common Core auditor proposal and confirm scope of audit. This will be followed by an action item. The setup on this thing, and this is the primary reason for our special session, is, as you all recall, in December we authorized an audit of our Common Core curriculum. An auditor was selected for math. She came in, spent a day, I believe, with us, and then delivered her proposal, so a little bit backwards. The proposal exceeded $20,000, so that's something we're going to need to agree that that's a cost we want to incur, or alternatively, is there a different path we want to pursue to find an auditor, either through RFP or through other vendors. The other issue here is that our ELA auditor backed out just recently. I think there's a note in here from her as well. And so we need to provide guidance to the working group to decide how we're going to pursue that one as well. So having said that, Mark, anything to add on that? Or?
Yeah, I would, if you'd allow me. I think we have a couple issues here. In our kind of haste to get this going, because the board was interested in having this done sooner than later, there were some steps that we didn't take that normally we would take with any kind of vendor. And for example, we would typically have a well-articulated RFP. It would be disseminated to a number of potential vendors, and we would have everybody go through the same process and review it, and then we would check references and all of that for the person who was least responsible in terms of cost, or responsible but least cost. That's the way we typically do it. We didn't follow any of those steps, and it turned out to be a mistake. The other issue on this is that when this person did spend a day here, we received a formal complaint from the TAP Association about her professionalism. So going forward at the cost that she's suggesting or requesting in a proposal, I think is inadvisable. I do think there are other options that we could explore. For example, there's an organization, I've been looking into this a little bit more, called the Consortium for Educational Change, that specializes in curriculum audits. And I contacted the director, is a guy by the name of Perry Sotawell, about this type of audit, which they say they do. They do these. They could specialize, tailor it to what we would do, and they could do both language arts and math for probably under $10,000. So there are other options. I think if we don't look at them, in my opinion, the board may have a different view on this, I think would not be the responsible thing to do fiscally, and also in terms of professionally, because I think if this audit continues, given her start, there's going to be questions about the credibility of her audit, in my view. So my recommendation to the board is that we have an RFP, we disseminate this to potential vendors like we normally would, and then we try to get this going as soon as possible.
Mark, just to ask a quick question. In terms of, obviously some of the teachers were rubbed the wrong way on how she approached things. Were expectations set appropriately? Because in my experience, an audit is rarely a pleasant thing. And so were expectations set that this was more professional development than it was an audit, or how were expectations set on it? Because in the spirit of, if we bring anybody in, we're going to set the right communication.
Well, given the nature of this, rather than sending these people an email about it, I talked to John and I talked to Matt. And we were clear that this was an audit, this was not professional development, and they talked individually to these teachers because we were concerned about their perception of having to be interviewed at an audit. So that was communicated to everybody involved on a person basis, so they could ask questions, and we're clear that this was the board's person to conduct this audit. It was not professional development. And as the teachers talked to me, it was more of being pressured, drilled, that kind of approach, which I don't think, in the spirit of professionalism is necessary. They can ask hard questions, but it was to make people feel intentionally unpleasant or threatened was not the way to approach this. So Matt and John, do you want to share any more about what you?
I would just say ditto to what you said. It was not a supportive visit. It was investigative, and it just I wasn't there. I didn't meet her, but my teachers really were uncomfortable with her demeanor and the reason she was there. And everything else Mark said.
I have a couple questions. In regard, oh, sorry, Mark. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
No, just, excuse me. Yeah, I met with the teachers individually too before she had a chance to meet with them, and also I did get a chance to meet with her. My advantage or disadvantage was I know her professionally from my work with the regional office, so our relationship was a little bit easier than I think the other people experienced, just since she had some history with me. So I didn't experience that, but my staff did feel a level of discomfort. And also I think a little bit of level of confusion because they've been already working with Fern and doing that work that they're moving forward with. And she and Fern are colleagues, and so they're almost feeling like they're getting conflicting messages from two people that play together too as well. So it's just a little, I don't think it's as uncomfortable at our level as it was at the elementary level, but at least from what they experienced, but it wasn't comfortable.
No, my only thing is, I concur with what Doug said, is that audits, from my understanding, are not always pleasant. I guess my question is that Mark Morable and Kim were involved in this, and you guys, along with Mark, and you guys looked through some of her, was there recommendations, or, what was your process to get to decide on?
Yeah, we looked through other credentials. We had 4 or 5, I think, for LA, right, Mark? Or for math, rather. And we kind of just ranked them based off of their bios. And that was all that, we had to go off of. So that's how we selected the person. I guess my assumption would be that we would handle getting bids or getting estimates on a project just like we would for every other project we do, and that did not happen. So my fear is that she's put in work. I don't know if we know how much work, but a portion of the time is already sunk in dollars, so does it make sense to start over with someone else?
At this point?
I asked Mark.
She only had authorization to work on the Friday, and I expected her to arrive with a proposal. She didn't have it in hand. So again, I apologize to the board for allowing her to, move forward with this on that Friday. I should not have done that in retrospect. Obviously, the reason I did is to get this thing moving forward, but we didn't follow the procedures we typically follow for this kind of work, and
I'd like to address that, because you know what, assuming this is taped, I want this to be clear. Mandated by law is $25,000 and over has to go to RFP. We, the board, put a policy in place that $10,000 and above has to come to us for approval, not go out for RFP. You're alluding to the idea that we go out to RFP for all of that. That is very untrue, Mark, and I want the record set straight that that is untrue.
that is our typical
That
practice,
is
and I
not,
stand by my
has been our,
comment.
great, then I'll send you proof tomorrow that you've ignored that in the past, personally. Okay?
Can I make one more
So now
comment?
that'll go on tape too.
Are you finished?
Now I am.
Okay. My only concern with an RFP is I've done RFPs. Now what we've done is we put out there publicly how much she is going to charge us. Anybody else, if we go back out, from my understanding, if we go back out for an RFP, people have gotten to see that amount that she has out there. what's them to say, oh, she was gonna charge 20, I'll charge 18. We're doing a true disservice to her as a professional. That looks very bad.
Well, let's address that though, okay? She said, for these things, here's an estimate, I'm gonna charge $2,000 a day. So I'm going based off the $2,000 a day, not the total, because there are things in her total that I think can be knocked out if we are as far along as we say we are, okay? Remember, this all started because we were told it's fully implemented. We changed to a line a couple months ago. So this all started because of terminology that this board was given. So I'm not gonna look at the 20 to 24,000 personally. I wanna look at the $2,000. And Kim, I think you brought rates of past professionals that we've used.
Yeah, I just did some digging. Larry Huggins, based on his 3-day training in August, he was just under $10,000, so about $3,300 a day. I believe Gretchen Courtney was $3,500 a day, and I called about Carol Jago's rates, it's about $3,200 a day.
2,000 a day.
Okay, so 2,000 days, so she's the same as Jenny. And Fern Tribby, I believe, has to cap her daily rate because she works for the ROE. So we are not quite as high as most.
So we're in line, in essence, with other professionals that we've used as a district.
Well, I would say that we have not requested for this type of work any other RFP, so we're in no position to say that we couldn't have it done
Well, we
for
had-
less money.
No, well, you had people that you gave us that said they'd do the whole thing for $1,000. They didn't even know what we wanted, so.
Was she given an outline of what we were
No,
looking
that's
for,
where, well, that's,
or
we gave
anything to
Mark,
base
we
her
gave Mark
proposal
an
or estimate
outline.
on?
We gave Mark an outline of what we were looking for. There was an email exchange that's in this past Friday's packet that says, here's what the board is looking for, based on, again, past terminology. So now it's more of, okay, where do we really stand? And whether that, Mark was tasked with reaching out to a couple of individuals, whether that was shared with them or not, I could not tell you, only he could.
Now,
We
where
also
did
had
these
a conversation
individuals,
about it, though.
where did these individuals come from? Like, how did these individuals come to, like, how were these,
Right.
how did
Mark,
you narrow it down
brought-
to 2 or 3
you brought-
people,
you
and
brought-
where'd they come from?
You brought like eight bios, I think.
Yeah, and I brought 2 or 3.
And you brought 2 or
Yeah.
3, Kim.
The source of the ones that I obtained were largely from the Association of Curriculum and Development, which is the national curriculum organization, and they have regional offices. So we contacted them and got bios of both people with experience in math and language arts. And Kim, I don't know exactly.
Yeah,
what
I
you
got it from other school districts that had recommended them. The problem, the reason we kind of erred on the side of the ones that we did was because the majority, actually all the ones that Mark shared were out of state. We were concerned about the cost of flying people in, putting them in hotels and feeding them while they were here to do, however, we didn't know how long it would take. So we kind of narrowed it down based on qualifications and who had, what we talked about at the last board meeting, who had experience with the state, who had experience in Common Core, who had experience with Park, kind of.
Where did Jenny come from? Where did Jenny Winter come from? Like, what has she done before?
I have a resume, her bio, if you'd like to see.
I
mean,
think she
who-
works out of Lake County
Lake
Regional
County.
Office, to my understanding.
We can certainly get that to you, Lisa. We didn't know that was a prerequisite because.
Well, no, I
Well, no,
wasn't
we didn't know that
expecting it.
was a prerequisite because the board last month tasked Kim and I to work with Mark.
Right.
But if we knew that you wanted all that, we would probably say, you know what, let's disband that little task force and make this a whole board thing and turn it into a 6-month endeavor.
No, that's fine.
I
I'm
have the others
just,
too, if you'd like to see.
I'm just curious where this recommendation came from, this person.
I thought the ISB, I thought you guys were gonna call the ISB.
Yeah, I mean, I did research, I called other school districts.
I mean, if you look her up on the internet, she's ICTM, she's involved in all sorts of math
Well, I
classes in
did.
Illinois. So,
And
you
you
know,
And
know her,
with no
John,
due
so if you don't
respect.
mind commenting as well, I greatly
With
appreciate
all due
it.
respect.
There are, some people that in the state that have been working a lot with the Common Core now. She works out of Lake County, ROE, and that's where, when we had exchanges with the regional offices, she would, collaborate with some committees I sat on. Her role is she also works with the Illinois State Board of Education and was developing some of the sites on ISB's site. They have a feature called Live Binders with actually some curriculum work that's on the Common Core for math. That's her task force. So she has a relationship with the regional and the state, Board of Ed and ROE. So she, Fern, and others, Sharon Rack, are all people that kind of do that type of work at different levels. The going rate is a little high for an ROE position, but her credentials are good. So.
Lisa, you.
Well, I think my one concern was that I went on greatschools.org just because I was like, okay, she's from Lake County and she works in Lake County, and I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a comparison. And one of the school districts that she worked for in math, taught math in grades 3 through 7 in Gavin School District 37.
What was that system?
Gavin School District 37. Gavin Central School has a rating of a 5 out of 10, and Gavin South Junior High has a rating of 4 out of 10. Pleasantdale, we have a rating of, in the elementary school, 10 out of 10, and the middle school, 9 out of 10. And then I went and drilled down a little further to look at math test scores.
How long ago was she teaching there?
Yeah, how long ago?
I'm not sure.
Something.
Are we discrediting someone?
No, I'm not
Talking about?
discrediting anybody, but I just want, it's Lake County, and she's the math coordinator for Lake County, correct?
She's associated with, she'd be somebody like the regional office, like we would call and say, can you help us find somebody to work with us? And I think she's an adjunct, I guess would be the best term.
Because I have current position, math and science coordinator, Lake County Regional Office of
Yeah, so she's,
Education.
and actually they pay her like a per diem basis, each of
Okay.
those positions.
Because grade level math scores for 2013, ISAT scores at Gavin Central School was 75%, state average was 55.
At least I don't even know, we don't even know if she's teaching there next year.
No, I know, but she's still the math and science coordinator
At that school district or in Lake County?
in Lake County.
Well, you could pull up any school district in Lake County. If they're not doing well, you're gonna attribute it to her?
Well, no, this is
Maybe
the
That
school
doesn't make
she's
any
there.
sense.
This was the school district that she taught in.
How many years ago though?
I'm not sure exactly, but I just think that if, we need to,
She was done in 2006, according to her
So
resume.
7 years ago.
we need to, do apples to apples. I mean, we're a high-achieving school, and we have been, and we've done well. And I think that we might have been hasty, I shouldn't, not hasteful, but hasty in making a decision. That's why I'm curious why we've got somebody from Lake County.
Because the others were out of state. The second
Right,
one.
we'd have to look up their schools and see how they perform.
Yeah, and we have one guy from New York.
I'm sure we could find someone that performs poorly.
I mean, we
out there.
couldn't find anybody that was a little bit more from this area.
The rest were out of state that Mark provided. Montana. There was Arizona,
Yeah, there you
Montana,
go.
New
Sure, I
York,
can do it.
and then Claren.
She's local.
Claren,
Really local.
Einfeld, and
Should be
Jeanette
helpful
were
in
the
our
only
district,
two from
too.
the state. And they're both
We're high
leaders in the
performers.
state.
There you
So,
go.
I don't,
All right, you guys want to table Sharon Rack's name then? But she's local and she's from our district.
That's why I think in this situation, a curriculum audit is a certain process that you're better off going with people that have experience doing that.
Mark,
And I
she
think-
does.
And I think with not looking at anybody else, not checking any references.
Mark, this
in
is specific
retrospect-
to a
Can I-
Common
may-
Core
may-
audit.
may I
This is-
kindly just-
But it's specific to a Common Core audit, not a curriculum audit. We're not interested in what we had, we're interested in what we're supposed to
My
have.
point is, we know already there's a firm that specializes in these audits and is doing these Common Core type audits, and it could do it, both of them, for half the price. So why we wouldn't solicit an RFP just to look at it as an option, I think would be ill-advised.
Mark, with all due respect, before we sat down to even talk about this, we asked you to bring names. We asked you to do that, and none of that came forward. So we're into this audit, in my opinion. I would just assume finish it and get it done.
Real quick, regarding the teachers, is she done with the elementary school now? Or does she have more, if she was to come back, would she have more work to do with the elementary school?
Ms.
That's-
Winters,
Yeah.
I believe it was just a one-time thing, what I was told.
Yeah, and I think one of her
So-
letters said something about observe, all she needs to do is observe some classes.
So the
And that's
friction,
gonna take 10 to 12 days of observation.
I think she put that, I don't know, if that's the outside or what? Because I think, Mark, you mentioned there's a chance to whittle that down in terms of what
Right.
she's doing, right?
Well,
For instance, one of the items that she has here, I'm just using this as an example, okay, is unpacking documents, okay? If you look at this page, okay, and you look at A through E, if A through E are in line, I'm not interested in F. I could care less. If I buy a car and that car runs well, and that car gives me the gas mileage I'm expecting, I don't then call the dealer and say, I'm gonna spend $2,000 more because I wanna make sure the purchasing agent bought all the parts. So if A through E
So is this
are
being conveyed
working,
to her? though?
pardon?
Is
Well,
it
no,
being
this is
conveyed
what we
to her?
will convey. We didn't get this until just recently. That's what this meeting's about. I'm not interested in unpacking documents if our common assessments, report cards, unit maps, and everything else are in line. If they're not in line, then yes, we may have to look at unpacking. So in essence, it's, if we're as far along as we said we are, we can get this done for $4,000. If we're not, it's gonna cost more.
And I'm sure of those days, doesn't it take some days, like some time to compile data? I
Yeah.
mean, she's not gonna be sitting in the classroom doing her report, I'm sure she's
Well,
gonna.
it looks like she has to look through mastery outcomes, pacing guide, scope and sequence for every grade, unit maps, every grade's report cards, and every grade's common assessments. I mean, I would guess that takes some time. The other thing that I did, I don't know, I think we have about 750 kids in our district. And I took at the high end, 20,000, divided by that number of kids, it's $26 per child to make sure we're doing this right.
I mean, personally, I was part of a team that approved $1 million roof. If I can approve $1 million roof, I can be part of a team that can approve a potentially $20,000 audit.
And we didn't approve $1 million roof without going out for bid and getting the lowest qualified bidder, and that's the issue here.
$1
is you're
million
going-
and 20,000 is a lot
You're going,
different. It's a lot
20
different.
That's, regardless of the price, we have not gone through the process to really
There's a
make
lot
a
of things that you
responsible
haven't gone through
decision.
the process, so
So
There's a lot of
so there are
things.
3 options on the table. Option number 1 is to continue with Ms. Winters for math, agree on a process for ELA. Option number 2 is to take them both out to RFP and get bids on both. And then option 3, I just slipped my mind, so there's 2 options. So,
I would, we just have to be careful moving forward with this.
Agreed.
I mean,
Oh, no,
you know,
agreed.
the teachers are upset, you know, they've worked really hard. They have worked really, really hard. And I think that, you know, you talk about discrediting, I think, you know, there might be some perception that, you know, we're having these auditors come in here because we don't think they've done the work. We don't think that they've been doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Well, I think
So-
that's why we are actually having an audit, Lisa. It's not about the teachers. We were told one thing and then we were told something else. So we're not doubting the teachers.
And I think we can fix that with just a letter from the board as to what our intent, and possibly even why we're here. We're here because we thought we were implemented, now it's aligned, so we just want to check, and if you need additional help, we're willing to spend the money there too.
I think it's important to recognize teachers have put in a lot of time and energy. The question has it been well directed? And that's really the question on the table, because they have busted their tails, absolutely agree. And they've put a lot of time and energy in getting things to where they are today. And this will either affirm what they've done, or, you know, it'll kind of point to an oversight issue that maybe we haven't pointed down the wrong road, and we need to have them go a different direction. So, but this is not an indictment of the teachers at all. They've killed themselves to get where they are today, and they should be congratulated for it.
Right. And we just need to correct that with Ms. Winters
Yes.
moving
Well,
forward.
it shouldn't be an indictment at all.
Right.
It should be digging deeper to, you know, I think at the end of the day, you have to look at this as, it will be positive for the kids of the district as opposed to pointing a finger at a group or an individual that you feel did not, you know, if you're looking to find fault is one thing. If you're looking to actually make this a positive shift for the kids in the district, that's another.
Well, I think
And I think that was clarified in last month when we approved this, was that we're looking to see where we are. No one said anything about fault, it's just that when you come into an adversarial situation and say, well, you're doing things wrong, it's like, yes, I'm gonna, you know, you back me against the wall and I'm gonna come out. And that's what I think I heard tonight was, you know what, you didn't follow procedures, you didn't do that, and it's like, that's just not true. So now you put me against the wall, I'm coming out. So I think we could shorten the conversation, because we can go on the rest of the night debating this, and that is to just go around and in 1 or 2 sentences, everybody say whether they want to go RFP or stay the course. I'll go first, I'll stay the course.
I'll stay.
I'll stay the course.
I'm gonna stay the course.
I'll stay the course.
I'll say of course. Now, that still leaves ELA though.
That leaves ELA,
What,
correct?
what does stay the course mean here? Because an expenditure of
We're going
$20,000
to,
to
we'll go
$24,000
into that in a second.
is
We'll go-
exorbitant.
We'll go into that in a second, because we'll identify it for both ELA and math. So that'll be the second half of the conversation. So let's move on to ELA. I think, Kim, that we had 2 individuals that we had picked. There was one that came from not a recommendation
Yeah,
from
we
you,
had
that you
2.
brought to the table, and one that Mark did.
Mark had-
We reached out to both of them. The first one turned us down immediately,
And Mark's accepted originally. or
and now
then
has
accepted.
subsequently declined.
Declined.
So we would have to go back at that list and see who's third on that list.
The others on the list, I can see, I have them here real quickly. This one's from Montana.
How about the one that was in here doing professional development?
Gretchen Courtney?
Gretchen Courtney.
I think the only problem is I thought we said that we wanted to keep it separate. that
No, I
we were
understand, but I'm just thinking, we're trying to find a criteria, somebody who's local, who's qualified, who obviously has a good demeanor, the teachers trust her, and so forth. I think both schools, right, Gretchen? So-
My concern with Gretchen is that her, and I don't know her at all, and I shouldn't know her, but my concern is that she's established a relationship in regards to professional development, and she might be jaded.
Okay.
Because, or it could be a conflict of interest, because she's already worked with our teachers to help build their professional development capacity. And so now if we're asking her to audit, she's partly auditing her work.
Right, I mean, that's a fair point.
Right, and I was gonna add to that, if we go down that path, we have to let her know that we're not gonna use her for any professional development.
And her fee is already $3,500 a day, so if Mark's worried that we're spending too much at $2,000, we'll be spending almost double with her, so. Did any of these people have someone in ALA they could recommend, like?
Yeah, but Gail recommended
They
someone.
dropped out and.
Deb Hayes, I think was her name. When she declined working with us, she recommended someone.
Did Deb Hayes decline too?
I
She
don't-
hasn't been contacted.
Oh, I thought you said she declined to work with us.
No.
So that lady, the Gail, recommended a Deb Hayes?
Gail recommended Deb Hayes, and she worked with the second person that
Laura
we.
Belchenko.
Laura Belchenko. She was our second person behind Gail, Mark, and so both Gail and Laura recommend this Deb Hayes.
She must be good, then, if they recommend it.
Well, you don't know in this instance if they're good or not, but I would say to not,
I'll look her up.
to not contact the consortium for educational change that specializes in this kind of work would be a mistake at this point. Why wouldn't we do that?
Okay, you wanna contact them and engage them for the ELA?
I think that makes the most sense. We don't have to limit it to that. We could
No, let's
send a
limit it to
proposal.
ELA. Let's limit it to the ELA. We've already gone around the table on this one, there's proceeding on that.
Are you, Mark, and Kim gonna still be the committee that,
Yeah, I think
I'm
so.
fine with
Okay.
it. Can we throw Deb Hayes into that mix, since she's
Yeah.
recommended as well? And if we know she's local, probably.
Can I make a request so we get kind of proposals up front and, we talk and clarify scope with them in conversation?
Well, I wanna go through what we're expecting in scope
Okay, that's
tonight.
fine, yep. Red one.
So Deb Hayes and the consortium of,
Yeah, the
Well, we want,
person,
for the consortium though, don't we want someone that's not doing the smarter balance between the park assessment? If they consortium, you might get someone that's,
well, we wanna see the bio of the person as well,
Oh, okay.
because we wanna make sure that person specializes in ELA. Because that was a prerequisite
Okay.
for the math.
We'll
and
come
math.
to the same.
We don't want
not just
somebody
like-
just coming in and
speaker or
saying,
something like- I
you
know
I'm a
this, but I don't
generalist. We
specialize
want
in-
somebody
right.
specializing
Well, we
in
had
that
some
way.
standards, Mark, maybe we should back up, we had some standards, like, they needed to, you know, be aware of what's going on in Illinois, so ISBD connection. They needed to have Common Core background, they needed to know about park, we were hoping they sat on some committees that were developing things. So whatever standards we were looking at, we would apply, I think, in this scenario too.
Okay.
And they needed to be content experts, not just a generic auditor, we wanted them to be specific to that content,
Okay,
so.
that makes sense.
Okay, so we have two, the consortium and Deb Hayes.
What was that, consortium of what?
The person we would contact there, I did get a name from Perry Sadowell, was, Jill is the first name, and it's a difficult Marge, I don't know how to spell it.
Well, what's the name of the organization?
Consortium for Educational Change.
And what was her name?
Jill is the first name, and don't ask me how to spell it, it's Marge, I just heard it phonetically, so anyway, those would be the two.
And who's Jill? Jill is-
She is their person that conducts these types of audits.
I'm sure she's on there.
Okay, so can we authorize Mark to, yeah, I don't know that this is a board item as opposed to if you guys are still directing Kim and I. Mark, can you get background on Deb Hayes and Jill?
Well, what I would suggest is that we get firm on the scope of this thing, because we never did do that as a board, and then we send a proposal out to both of them and say, can you do this, and what would be the cost?
But we actually, Mark and I, as a direction of the board, did give you a pretty
Did do
specific
that,
scope.
right.
So I kind of resent the fact that you're saying you didn't get that from the board, because that wasn't the task. It was Mark and I giving you direction. We gave it to you in writing, and we talked on the phone. So to now say we haven't given you direction, I entirely disagree with that.
What I'm saying is, in terms of agreeing as a board that we have a common understanding, for example, and I think Mark is alluding to this, for Ms. Winters, she has observation of classroom instruction. In an audit like this, I don't see that as a necessary step. She can interview the teachers, they can explain what they're doing.
I disagree.
I do too. I'm like, that's crazy.
I disagree because when she's observing, she's making sure that they're using curriculum
Appropriately.
appropriately.
I'm gonna grab this. Okay, let's, we're not gonna go to the most controversial runs right off the bat. You'll have a chance to disagree in a bit.
Okay.
Let's start with review of curriculum. I mean, again, this isn't a line versus an implemented discussion, because that's what brought us here. So staying on that, you know, looking at 1A, mastery outcomes. Okay? Is that, Mark, do you want to go through and define what you would expect that to?
I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay.
And also, I would just preface this, but this type of review of documents is not a lengthy process for somebody who knows
Mark,
what
let's
they're
just
doing.
stay with that, okay? Because I could say Larry Huggins come in, read off his rules of engagement, and walk out and charge us $5 too. So I'm not going to go with someone being here all day or not being here all day. We, again, you're getting us off topic, and we want to be out here by 7:10.
Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, the things that they would look at, mastery outcomes. The next one, pacing guides / would be curriculum maps, those could be.
No. What would you expect? What would you expect to be would be like an outcome of mastery outcomes? Can you define
Well,
what mastery
do
outcomes
they exist
are?
or not, and are they aligned?
Okay. So before we move on to the second one, would everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, pacing guides, scope and sequence, and curriculum maps can all, they're variations of the same thing. And the issue there would be to what degree are they developed?
Okay, before we move on, anybody have a comment or agree or disagree with that?
I guess, Mark Marley, I'm just confused. Are we trying to define what these are? Or?
Kind of, so that we
Okay.
can utilize that and agree on that terminology. Because
Okay.
if you have a different idea in your mind of mastery outcomes than, you know, Gina, and we get a report a month from now and it meets Gina's but doesn't meet yours, then we're in a similar bind that we are right now. So, yeah, we kind of do have to agree as to,
should
you know,
be.
Mark's given us the definition of what he believes these to be, you know, and he's,
Because that's
and
what
he's
they
a
are.
professional,
Right,
understood,
the
okay?
PhD.
So we have to say, yeah, we would agree that that would be, you know, they either exist or they don't, they align or they don't kind of thing. We have to agree so that when we get a report, we say, okay, this is sufficient.
I got you. I just
Fair
didn't
enough?
understand what we're trying to do, yeah.
Okay. So, the variations
Real quick,
of,
Mark, before you go further, is this the same list you guys provided to Dr. Brainstorm?
We didn't even go into this. We were more concerned about the person and what
Okay.
qualifications they had to have.
Okay.
So this estimate came back.
well, when we, to answer your question, if again, that was all in the emails that I think were delivered this past Friday, or no, probably
January 2nd.
January, because you had made mention in the last meeting of something I wrote in one of them, about the BCS vote. And, in there, we defined what we were looking for as a whole.
Right, so we said this report will explain the current state of our curriculum and the status of unpacking, aligning, and implementing the Common Core, possibly using a comparison to other districts in surrounding areas, state, or country. In addition, a professional development plan can or may be recommended to the Board of Ed for D107 staff members as it relates to.
All right, so we're drilling down a level below
Yes.
that.
Correct, so now,
Okay.
exactly, that's what I was just gonna
Sorry.
say, is now we're going down to greater detail so that we can turn around and give it, either agree or disagree, give it to Ms. Winters and give it to the ELA expert.
So unit maps? Is that right?
But the pacing guides, scope and sequence / curriculum maps can be all, they're a variation of the same thing. Degree of development is the issue. Report cards, do they align? Are we aligning those with Common Core standards? And common assessments are classroom assessments. And to what degree have they been modified to measure mastery outcomes? Up in A.
Mastery outcomes or Common Core state standards?
Well, that's what we call our common, the Pleasantdale terminology for that is district mastery outcomes.
So that's the Common Core standard is.
For
our
language
mastery-
arts and math, yes.
So they should be the same.
Well, if we had, let's,
That's what I'm wondering.
right, to clarify
'Cause
that,
there's
if
a
you go back,
difference.
right, if you go back 5 years ago and just go out to our mastery outcomes, they
Right.
were aligned to
This-
kind of what the state expects. Now, if the state is changing to the Common Core outcomes, our mastery outcomes should align to that.
Because he says they're done, so
So,
they should.
so we're
Okay.
saying that 1A, mastery outcomes, exist or not exist and are aligned to Common Core. Our mastery outcomes are aligned to Common Core. So we can
Okay.
add that terminology in there.
Is that district mastery outcome, DMO? Is it the same thing?
Yes.
Now, I would like to, can you say what you did again? You mentioned common assessments are classroom assessments. That would be the homework / testing material that would be given to the children? Is that?
No, these would be.
That's what I would envision.
The best way to describe that is third grade, we have 4 classroom teachers.
Right.
And they all give the same common assessments, which would be more like a chapter or unit assessment, not necessarily individual quizzes or that kind of thing. That may vary. It's a usual thing in curriculum writing, so that's what they are.
Right. And I'm just going back to, the reason why I'm asking is because, you know, I still think deep down, certainly not alignment with sequencing, but with at least the higher level order of thinking portion of the Common Core, that, you know, we'd probably be ahead of the game had we stayed on course with Marzano 4 years ago. But that required us to have different assessments, meaning, and I'm gonna call them the test for the sake of argument,
That's fine.
okay? And those tests would have included some level 4 questions. So when I think of assessments, I'm thinking more that physical test, or quiz, whatever you want to call it, not necessarily just, you know, the grade level teachers are all teaching the same material.
And I think
I'm like,
that's
after
what
they
you
get
said,
them
right?
teaching that material, we then have to assess the children on their ability to learn it. So that's where that assessment would come in. Am I looking at that wrong?
Yeah, they're the major assessments that all teachers would give at regular intervals. Usually have a unit,
Right.
a chapter.
It's a written test, right, Mark?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so
That's
that's
what
what
you're
one,
saying,
that's
yeah.
what 1E is, right? 1E on there would be a written test to you? Because I'm thinking of the curriculum teaching material is being part of C, the unit maps.
Yeah, that would be separate than common assessments.
So the unit maps would be the teaching material, and the common assessments would be how we grade the children against that?
B and C is how they teach, A is what they teach,
Right.
and the assessments is evaluating the teaching,
I'm not gonna say it's evaluating the teaching.
evaluating what the kids learn.
Right, right, because
Yeah.
you can't evaluate the teaching, because every,
Right,
you know,
I'm
you
sorry,
can't
I
expect every
misspoke.
child to score
You're
a
right.
99,
Mhm.
right? You want that, you strive for that, but, I mean, is that what Kim just said makes sense? Does that align with what your thoughts are?
Yeah, anyone who is familiar with curriculum would easily know what common assessments are. It's very straightforward.
Okay, then can we as a board agree that 1A would be numbered 1, 1B and 1C would be numbered 2, 1E would be numbered 3, and 1D would be numbered 4 on any kind of proposed expectation?
And then what would you do with the other 2 through 6? What would those become?
Well, okay, we can go through, well, we can number those something different
Okay.
also. Now, when I get to personal opinion, when I get to F and G, if what we just numbered 1 through 4 are good, I don't need F and G. I don't need to sit and look at unpacking material.
Yeah, I think G, though, has some bearing.
But G would only, I mean, if 1 through 4, what we just defined as 1 through 4,
Mhm.
there's any kind of, you know, things missing
Mhm.
that we need to, you know, make better,
Right.
then I would suggest we go to F and G. But if the professional development is not just the overall professional development of our teachers, it's professional development as it pertains to Common Core.
Understood, and I guess I look at that more as a sustainability item. We can put in 1 through 4, whatever, 1 through E. But then if we don't do G correctly, it deteriorates over time. Because we're not reinforcing that with the professional development. You see what I'm saying?
I do, but this is an audit of
Oh, you're right.
What's
We are
what
saying-
we've done.
You're right, you're right.
This is not a, hey, I'm gonna propose this 2 years out.
I got it, I'm with you.
But I
You
think
said
what
that-
we asked for, though, I'm sorry, Jen, I think what we asked for, even when you and I met, Mark, was if we saw deficiencies in any of these areas, we want a plan to get us where we need to be by this person, not by one of our current consultants. We want this person, because this person will not be doing our training.
Well,
We want
that's
an
why I was
outside
gonna take F and G
perspective.
separately,
Right.
and suggest that, you know, if 1 through 4 are good, what we just defined as 1 through
Yeah.
4 are good, we don't need F. If there's a deficiency, we may have to look at F.
We want to know why.
And the outcome, right, we want to know why, and then the outcome of that would be 6, what's currently numbered 6 down below, which are recommendations for professional development implementation. I don't need to review what they've done so far. Because if we're in line, there's no need to look at what we've done so far.
Sure.
If there's a deficiency, my opinion, we still don't need to look at the professional development done so far. We need to offer future professional development. Because what is that audit gonna be? Well, if you're not in line, is that audit gonna be, well, the professional development taken so far is not good? I
Right,
mean,
no, I see what you're saying.
you know, that's just, and I'm saying this is just my opinion.
I mean, we could probably count on one hand the amount of professional development based on the.
No worries,
saw,
no worries,
so
but if
I
it
don't think
takes
it's gonna
her
be 10.
20 minutes, right, but if it takes her an hour to look at it and write it up, that's, you know, 1/8 of $2,000 I don't have to pay her.
But instead of haggling over hypotheticals, why don't we just do what we're here to do? You know, finish this out, and then if that step needs to be taken, then we take that step when it comes. I
Well,
don't think we need
well-
to sit here and talk about future professional development at this moment, because it's
No, we're not,
futile,
we're not.
because they may not need it.
Exactly,
So-
and that's exactly what I said. I said if 1 through 4 are in line, we don't
Right.
need the rest.
Then let's.
Perfect. All right, so we are. So if 1 through 4, I would expect to get a report after 1 through 4. I would expect to get a report, because if we're in line, then we stop the audit. If we're not in line, then we move to the unpacking material.
So, I don't know what Ms. Winters has seen to date, but what if she already knows?
Then I would ask her for an immediate
And what do we
report.
do?
I'd ask her for an immediate report.
Yeah, I don't know what she's been given
I
her,
mean,
she's looked at all this.
Our concern, or what I thought I heard our concern to be, is if there's a deficiency, we want to know as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
So do we need to ask her then to provide us with what, the old 2 through 5 are, or 2 through 4 are kind of the how steps? Right, one is how, observations are how, surveys are how, interviews are how, right?
Mhm.
Do we need to ask her which of these things she has to do in order to get the what's, which are your new 1 through 5, 1 through 4? I'm going to count the number here, but, because what we've asked for, these are kind of the, she needs to evaluate against these things you just enumerated, right?
Mhm.
Now, the old numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are how she's going to do that.
Mhm.
Do we need to ask her, does she need to do all of those to achieve that outcome? And then we can then kind of define scope from there? Or is she gonna come back and say she needs to do all those things in order to give us an answer on those outcomes?
She already did 3 though, right?
I guess
think so.
what I'm saying, I guess what I'm driving at is, if there's a deficiency found, I'll go back so that we all are on the same page here looking at this. I won't renumber anything 1 through 4. If there's a deficiency found in 1A through 1E, then why would you even do 2?
Well, I guess my question
You
is,
could anticipate that there's gonna be a deficiency there
I mean, I
too.
guess the question is, can she determine deficiencies strictly by looking at those documents, or does she need to do the other things in order to complete the picture?
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
That's
I
But,
think
because
that's a whole- you know,
1A,
pieces
1A,
together.
1A through 1E, fair question, okay? 1A through 1E is, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if 1A through 1E are not in line, why even bother with 2?
But
I mean, there's no way, I'm not saying she's not gonna do 2.
No, I'm just.
I'm saying if 1A through 1E are good, then you can do 2, but I still wanna know as soon as possible.
Oh, you
if
just want a
one-
report.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure
I'm
if
not
we were
looking-
trying to cut the
It could
cost.
be 2
I
sentences.
wasn't sure where you
No,
were
it
going.
could be 2
Okay, got it.
sentences.
I
Thank
was
you.
going to say maybe you were.
Okay, no, it
Yeah.
could be 2 sentences.
I thought you
Hey,
were trying
these
to
are
cut the
good, I'm
cost of
moving
it.
on.
Okay.
These are good, I'm moving on. But if there's a deficiency in those, you might as well not do 2. Because whatever deficiency is gonna be there is gonna come out in 2 as
Right,
well.
it's redundant at that point.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think I've got the marching order. So we're looking at one being the review, the curriculum, one being the mastery outcomes, 2 is the pacing guide school curriculum maps, 3 report cards, 4 is common assessments. So the question of this consultant,
3 is common assessments, 4 is report cards.
okay, is relative to other districts, it has to be relative to something.
Mhm.
Relative to other districts, how do we rate in our development of those things?
I don't think
No.
we were ever said
No.
relative to other districts.
We
never
said,
that.
are we aligned, are
Yes.
we according to what you
The
shared
state
with
standards.
us?
Yeah, it's,
I
we
will
never
find it. Give me
told
1
other
second.
school, our community, well, compared to everyone else, we're ahead. We said, we're done. So that's what we're looking at is, are we
Yes.
done? Are we done because that's what you told
Because
us?
done equals meeting state standards as far as the Common Core, those thick documents that they publish have
Not,
been implemented.
yeah, not relative to other districts, because really, some districts are ahead and some districts are behind. what's your measuring
Well,
stick?
nobody is done, so it's never said
Well,
we're
we are.
completely done. No, that's
We
totally
asked-
incorrect.
we asked-
Well, that's what you
as-
said.
Right.
Anyway,
Sorry, can I add one thing? We asked to see if this was true. This is what was shared with the board in the Common Core presentation, right? This is where we first were concerned, because it was different than what the board was told in the past. So we want to see if this is true, if where we said we are, we actually are. And then, if they have a frame of reference with other districts, that was this was part A, that was part B. That is not the primary goal, was never to compare us to every other district. The primary goal was to see if what we were told is where we're actually at.
Well, you would have to compare to something, otherwise it's objective.
We're only comparing to this. Are we unpacked?
But
Math,
aren't we
we say
more
we're complete.
concerned about where we are in comparison to other districts?
That's
to see if we're
secondary.
moving in the right direction?
I think that's important to know, but I think it's more important that how we match up against the state standards.
Mhm.
And what are we supposed to have in place, in best
As of
case?
now, today.
As of right now, right. And where do we stand?
Well, we
Okay,
said
well,
our
that's
math
good. So there's
content's
two
one,
things.
which is annoying.
Kim, thanks for sharing that, because, okay, that's a good clarification. Here's the status that we reported to the board, so you want a second opinion on that, right? And then the second thing, which I think the board did talk about, is relative to other districts, where do we stand? I think that's a good thing to know.
Absolutely. It was
Okay.
A, B. There's two.
All right.
So we have about 5 minutes left. on
Okay,
this
so that
topic.
simplifies it.
Okay, so are we then comfortable, this is the approach, it's kind of an if-then approach, we get through those first things. If we're okay there, we kind of get the preliminary report, make a decision if we want to go further and deeper, or if we need to or not, and then get into the ensuing steps. Do we want to follow a similar approach for ELA and basically the change math to ELA at this point?
Well, can we stay and finish this thing, because there's a
Sure.
couple items on there that are, in question, at least in my mind, and that is, again, assuming that 1A through 1E are good, I don't need F and G, okay? What's currently number 6, you know what, I could take it or leave it. There's a point to what Lisa's saying, which is, you know what, we don't have to worry about that now, we can look at that in the future. There's a point to what you're saying, which is, geez, let's have something lined up so that we stay the course. You know, I could take or leave that because both, you know, the summary of observations, findings, I think that's the end-all, be-all report that we're gonna ultimately get in February, so 5 is an expected outcome. Let's go back and assume again that 1A through 1E are good. I don't think that the survey needs to take place, and I don't think that the interviews, and I know she's already done some of this, but I don't think that the survey or the interviews need to take place. I think it's then a matter of, okay, if all these are in line, I'm gonna see if you're actually implemented them into the classroom.
So, kind of spin that just a little bit differently.
Certainly.
The first part of the letters is, here's what we need to prove that we've implemented.
Right.
The next thing is to prove we understand how to use those things. So however she thinks we can get to that information, whether that's through observation or through interviews or whatever, but I think we need to leave it to her discretion.
Okay.
How she gets to that point.
Okay.
So,
What did, Mark Foster, what of these has she been provided? Does she have all A through E already? And if not, how soon are we getting, can we get them?
She
sooner?
would have A for one, she has the mastery outcomes, the pacing guides, the report cards, and the common assessment she would not have yet.
Because I thought in one of her notes, she said she didn't have the report cards or the assessment.
They're on the website. I gave her the link, so she has it.
So she should go to the website and look it up?
That's the easiest way.
That's fine, she can do that.
You said she has 1 through,
But she has outcomes, scope and sequence, and pacing guides, and report card. She doesn't have common assessment. So how soon can we give her the common assessments? I imagine that would take a little bit of time unless they're all on the drive or something like that.
We'd have to pull them off our software. Shouldn't be incredibly time consuming.
So how much time? I mean, we're trying to move this forward quick, so that seems to be a key component.
do we know if she's still, is her schedule still open? And then how about-
I guess the other thing is, given we're limiting the scope of this, I would request the board's permission to renegotiate this price in the amount of time.
Yeah, what I would ask, and you guys can agree or disagree with this, is that the 3 members of the team work with her to align this proposal, so we have board and administration, involvement in this, so that we're not back here again in
Right.
2 weeks. Okay, so this is, I'm comfortable with the three of you guys working together based on this guidance, to close this thing out and move it along.
Maybe there could be status,
Yeah.
meetings and then, okay, she's put in 12 hours and that's all we need.
Right.
We've gotten the information we needed and that's good, thank you. I mean, she's not expecting an upfront contract, is she? I'm going to do whatever.
I think we pay her time and material. Wherever she works, we pay her.
Okay.
And so
Okay,
we
then we're
can
asking
control
her to switch this to an hourly rate from a daily rate.
it.
She could put in 12 hours.
No, I
a
didn't mean it
day.
like that, I meant like 8 days. Okay, suppose at 5 days, you guys are getting a status report at 5 days of work, and it looks like she's accomplished everything that you really wanted to see. Then do you have the opportunity to say, okay, you're done, we're finished, we have what we need, we're gonna pay you
Well, that's what we need,
$16,000
right, that's what we
as
need to
opposed
put,
to
that's what we need to
24.
put into a written
I
document.
have
Okay.
a question. Mark, when did you tell her to stop working?
As soon as I read the proposal on Tuesday.
So
that would've
Tuesday,
been
so
about-
she, I'm just thinking, so she came in on Friday, and then you told her to go to the website, so she might have worked Saturday and Sunday,
That was
and
my
maybe
concern.
Monday, doing the stuff you told her to do, find on the website, and, so we might be in for more than 1 day already.
That was my concern.
And
We
you
don't
told her
know.
on Tuesday, so that's,
So,
I mean,
Well, that's the case, and we should be able to get to the preliminary report pretty quickly then, if we're going to allow this. So,
Right.
since we're agreeing to go forward with her,
Right.
the money's already, we expect to spend money on her.
Right.
but she's
Okay.
already
But
done
my
that.
point before, we need to have agreement in writing about what she will do and what it will
That's fine.
cost.
And that's why I think Kim, Mark, and you working together will be great, because we all be on the same page.
Yeah. Okay, so are we, Mark, okay with math right now? Or do we want to move on to ELA real quick?
No, I think we're fine with math. I would tend to think that the same things,
Mhm, That's
you
what I
know,
want to know.
just take the third word in, or the third word in 3 and the third word in 4, substitute ELA, we got the same thing.
I agree. Anybody
You
else?
know, there's no sense
Okay with
rehashing.
that?
No.
Okay.
Same scope.
And then, as far as the dollar figure goes, do we want to authorize expenditures now, or how do we want to approach that?
I'd say let's do
We'd
it
have
now.
to, if it's gonna
Yeah.
move forward.
So I would say we authorize
Well, just do a not to exceed.
not to exceed per audit, right?
Yeah.
$25,000 per audit, is that a
Sounds
reasonable
fine.
number? Not to exceed, not,
Well, unless, if it's gonna go over, obviously, they need to come back to the committee and, I mean, give her a reason.
right.
My suggestion
I
would
would
not
keep
to
it at
exceed
not to exceed going over
15,000.
20, well.
I disagree.
We could already be 15,000.
We already spent,
I'm with, I think $20,000 is
I
what
think-
you were saying.
yeah.
I think 20,000, I prefer $20,000.
Okay, what's not to exceed $20,000
Each audit,
per audit?
per audit.
Okay, that's what I wanted clarification.
Well, we could already be, I mean, just looking at this one proposal, we could already be at 24.
Let's just
I know
work.
we're scaling
No,
down.
no, the most we could be at is 10. She was told 5 days after
Friday,
the
Saturday,
cease work.
Sunday, Monday.
And she was told Tuesday,
Tuesday
so we
morning.
could already be at 10,
No,
not
what
20
Kim's
or
saying though is
24.
she comes back and says, okay, here's your
It's gonna be
scope,
12.
it's still gonna be,
Let's say she says
12 days.
11 days. We're still over the 20 grand.
Let's say what now?
Let's say instead of, she said 10 to 12 days. Let's say we edit her scope, and she says, okay, instead of, 2,000 per
Gotcha,
day
gotcha,
at
gotcha,
10 to
gotcha.
12, I'm going with 11 days. We're still already exceeding, then we gotta come back to the board. I mean,
why don't you just do the top, if she said 12 days at 2,000, that was her top, just 24 and be done. I mean, it's not that far off. I mean, considering what we just spent with Larry Huggins, which was 20,000, and he only gave us 6 days. We're right there.
Well, I would say maybe for that one, 24, but I think for the second one, I think we need to have a lower number.
but we're giving them the same scope.
Yeah.
We don't know.
It's a different person too.
We don't know what it's gonna be.
okay, so I would say let's do $25,000 per, this is safe.
I would say let's be safe and do 24.
Uh-huh.
Okay, fine.
Okay, 24.
Well, the reason is because the minute you hit 25,
Just
now
do the
you've got to go
24.
out
You're
there.
right,
I'm sorry,
24.
I said 20. Let's just do 24.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Well, the reason I picked that
I
number,
hear ya,
Lisa, was
24
the
is perfect, it's
25.
at the top, if she goes 12 days, then we're there, we're all set, we
It
don't
has
have to
nothing to
come
do with
back.
that, it has to do with if you go
RFP.
25, you're forced to go out to RFP.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next step is an action item.
Good.
So, motion, let's see if I can work this one out. Motion to approve the scope of the audits as defined in our discussion.
Hold on, don't push fast.
Okay. Hurry up, because I'm gonna lose it.
Okay.
And authorize 25,000, not to exceed $24,000 per audit in expenditures on the consultants. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? It's very broad, but I think it covers it. Do I have a
I'll second that motion, sorry.
It's good.
Did you make it?
That's
Mrs.
it.
Barker?
Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause you read it.
I moved.
Mrs. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Mobley?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tugmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Guante?
Yes.
Mr. Gilman?
Yes.
Real quickly before we move on, I know everybody wants to move on, but I think a key component is what we're gonna communicate to the teachers. And if we don't do it now, that's fine, but I think something needs to be communicated to the teachers where this is coming from.
So I would like,
I think it needs to be done very carefully, because
Yes.
there's a lot of damage control.
I would agree. So how do we do that? Is it the working team, is it the communications committee, is it?
I would say it's not the communications.
I'd be willing to do it with somebody
Which
else.
sounds ridiculous.
We're not meeting
because it
till the
should be.
4th
I was
of
gonna vote for
February,
you
so
guys.
we wouldn't be
Yes,
able
we're
to
not
do it
meeting
right
for
now.
another week and a half.
I think
so-
the communication team, Mark and Kim, if you guys, and Mark Squared and Kim. I mean, you guys can draft something, but you all have to be in agreement so they know what's going on.
I'd like to recommend, and I don't want to put the burden on you, but I'd like to recommend Kim just type an initial paragraph and let's see what it looks like. You have a marketing degree.
Feel the love.
Twist it. You have a marketing degree.
If you're good at something, you go with it. So, but I think I would also like you guys to involve the principals as well.
Oh, certainly, that's what I'm saying,
Overall.
just draft a paragraph and then let's edit from there.
Who is this coming from, the board?
I think it has to.
Okay, all right, I just want to be clear.
Because the board is saying, you know, hey, geez, we're authorizing this audit, we need to let the teachers know.
And just, you know, we need to acknowledge their hard work already. They've done a
Right.
great job so far. This is just one final step of assurance to make sure they're all on the right track.
And I want them to know too that we heard what they said.
Mhm.
Like, we heard you, so.
So just so we're clear on this, so Kim will draft something and then,
Kim, is that okay?
Yeah, I don't mind drafting it,
Okay.
absolutely.
and then that'll be
Sorry,
given
Randy,
to,
probably.
that'll be given to
Sorry,
all.
Roddy. She's in there.
And is this for all teachers?
I think it goes to the whole district. I mean,
No, I
Just
would
go to
agree.
TAP.
Well, that'd be
Since the
all,
letter came from
I think it
TAP,
should
and
go
then they
for,
can be
I
distributed
think it
from
should go
there.
to all staff.
No, I think it'll go to
Yeah,
all, to all
because
the
is everyone
teachers
in
from the
TAP?
board.
Some might not be in TAP.
Right.
You know, TAP didn't send a note to the board, we're sending a note to all the teachers.
They need to hear our voice.
Because you said you received the letter from TAP, right?
It was to myself and the board.
But
We
some
can- we
teachers
can-
aren't
we can-
members of TAP.
Right, we can send it to
so-
TAP and we can send it to all the teachers, so
Okay.
enough said.
You send it to all the teachers if they don't.
Understood.
All right, so let's move on to the
We can
next.
address it.
The next item is item number 5, review options to make up non-attendance days due to weather. Mark, I'll let you take this one. This is,
Okay, well, we are where we are. It's unprecedented to take this amount of days. In my 12 years here, the most we ever had was 2. But we do have some options. The most obvious option is we build in, as we're required to do, is 5 emergency days at the end of the calendar. And that's required by the state that all districts do that, and we did that. So if you look at our district calendar, it'll have 5 emergency days. So assuming we don't use another one, it's no guarantee.
Yeah, we're supposed to get a lot of snow.
But we're operating now on the
let's
premise,
think positive.
and we're just looking at options at this point. It's probably easiest if you refer to the district calendar that's in there, so you can see in June, from the Thursday, Friday, that would be the 5th, the 6th, and then the 7th and 8th, there is a weekend, the 9th and the 10th. So we would be going to Tuesday, the 10th. As an alternative, if I can get your attention on April. April 17th currently is a half-day in-service noon dismissal. The subsequent day, that Friday, is a non-attendance day. And then the following Monday, which would be April 21, is a non-attendance day. So what would be possible is to make April 17th a full day, a non-in-service day. The subsequent day, Friday, would be an in-service day with noon dismissal, and that would count as an attendance day. And then the following Monday, an attendance day. So the result of that is we'd pick up 2 attendance days. Then in June, to make up the other 2, the, the Thursday and the Friday, the 5th and the 6th would be attendance days. What that would prevent, again, assuming no more bad weather days, is we wouldn't have to wrap around to the next week on that Monday and Tuesday. So that basically I see as there 2 options, unless, of course, the board wants to get into reducing spring break. I don't see that as I wouldn't suggest that, because we line up with LT and people plan their vacations, that kind of thing. And I know there's been some discussion about, we have President's Day, that's a legal holiday, and we would need a waiver for that. And we do not have a waiver for President's Day. And also, I think in the immediacy, that's only, what, 2 to 3 weeks away. And if you're gonna mess up a weekend, you should just pick one rather than 2, would be my suggestion. So that's, I think, the 2 options we have that are feasible.
Mark, my own education, what constitutes a legal day? Is there a number of hours that constitutes a legal day? Is it 4 hours, 5 hours? What makes a half day a full day in terms of the state counting?
They allow you a certain number of half days that
Okay.
you can, and that's why we had, I think, 3 half days.
I thought the law changed though this year that you could not use a half day as a full as an attendance day anymore. And that's why we
That had to
switched
do
our
with
calendar.
the beginning and the end of the school year.
So just those 2 days, are not counted, but the rest of
They
them?
need to be full attendance days, but you have the option of, see what we did on our calendar is our first day is a half day because you can use one of your half days for that.
And so, like, because I know we have a half day in February, which is Valentine's Day, so if we made that, so that's where you're already counting.
That already
as-
counts as an attendance day.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say, make that a full day.
That's what I was hoping for too, it was like 3 hours, 4 hours. or
Right.
something.
Right, and I don't mind it, but I mean, the reality is, is there any kind of waiver period you can get for even making up the days? And the reason why I'm asking is because if those are, attendance instructional days as opposed to, waste the day waking up and coming to school. I mean, for instance, we're not moving graduation, so the reality is, in typically, when you look at what is currently June 3rd, I guess, is the last day of school, when do we typically, it's normally 3 or 4 days before that, maybe even 5, where we require all the grades to be in, all the report cards to be done, and collection of the books. So the kids are going to school.
It'd be movie day.
Exactly. And so all we're really doing is adding 2 more movie days on to the end of the year. So what I'm trying to figure out is, we actually gonna have in-class curricula that day, or are we just adding movie days? And if we are, is there any kind of waiver you can get from the state to even just not have to do it, period?
And what happens if we don't meet our number too?
Right.
What's ramifications, what recourse does the state have?
Right.
Well, you're required to have 176
Well, I understand that. What happens if you
instructional
don't?
days.
Can they shut you down?
Well, they could not give you, the state aid for those particular days, and I don't know beyond that.
And what does that equate to?
Yeah.
But we find that out before we actually make a decision on this, because to just add days for the sake of adding days, but nothing's gonna take place on those days.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing, I mean, instructional time is valuable
Oh,
time,
certainly.
every minute, and to lose 4 days and not recover that, I don't,
Mark raises a good point though, if the 8th graders graduate on Tuesday the 3rd,
They lost 2 days of instructional time this year.
so they're gonna be 3 days just hanging around, or are they?
well, 2 years ago, we did have to use 2 days, and we did not change graduation, so even though we came again on that Thursday and Friday, the 8th grade, they have their graduation and they were done, and the rest of the students were in attendance. If we had 4 days, or if we use another weather day, for now, we already have 4 days, and if we take those on to the end of the school year, I would think we need to, at that point, consider whether we should, in fact, move graduation, because that's 4 instructional days that the 8th graders wouldn't have.
What happens if you go into a 6th day?
You don't have to make it up.
That's,
The 6th day or any of the days?
Any of the
The
days past
6th
5,
day.
you don't have to.
So
make
they're
it
not
up.
worried about penalties on 8
So
on
it
the
might only be
6th
2
day.
days or?
Welcome to the state of Illinois.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
just keep.
I just want to know the
We get
rules,
dumped
so I
on
can
them
play
for
by
2 more
them.
days, right?
Well, I have a
Pray
question.
for snow, I guess.
What
So anyway,
constitutes,
That'd be on that.
How many days are we at 176 already? Like you said?
yeah.
So we're at that, that's how many we didn't go over at all?
Well, if you look in June, every year, we add on 5 days.
Right.
So if we don't use any weather days, we're done June, so Wednesday would be the 4th.
And that's our 176th
Because that would be
day.
176 days.
Okay. And what constitutes a day? Like how many, like I know, because someone had mentioned minutes, like, are we going, like, a day might be like a certain number of minutes, and we may already be over those minutes, we have time banked, is that?
It doesn't look like that.
It doesn't work like that at all? Okay, I just wanted to
300
make
minutes
sure.
per day,
What is it?
300 minutes of
300?
instructional time.
So if we go over that, we don't get to bank it, like,
You could bank it for professional development, that's how LT does like their late starts. They bank that time, but still they have to have a full, the students have to be in attendance, so you can't lose an attendance day. You can just have a shorter attendance day, still having 300 minutes.
gotcha, thank you.
Mark, are we taking away those 2 dates in April that we would be taking away, were those teacher institute days? Those non-attendance days?
One was a half day in service, and that still would be there.
Okay,
because-
but how about that Friday and Monday, they were just non-attendance
Right,
off?
attendance days are days off.
So teacher, okay.
Quickly, at the end of the day, I really, it doesn't matter to me, just add them, okay? And I'm fine with your recommendation. But can we get an answer on what the penalty is if we ignore
Oh, sure.
that?
Yeah.
I would
So,
like that.
so I think what we want to do is, we don't have an action item tonight on this, I think it's something we'll approve and consent, or whatever in the next one. But Mark, you talked about wanting to do a survey of parents as well. Did you still want to do that?
Well, that's really at the pleasure of the board. I mean, if the board is serious entertaining more than one option, it might be in the interest of the board to, do a survey and say, what would you prefer? 4 days at the end, or recovering 2 days around before and after Easter? That's what I think, we need some guidance here. Because you don't want to put out a survey if you have no intention of looking at the options.
So I think in addition to those, there's also the option of, depending on what the penalty is, do we want to absorb the penalty as well of a couple days of lost state aid, whatever
Right,
that might be.
which may not be,
Right, so let's go around the table and kind of just give your thoughts on those 3 things.
I personally think Mark's proposal for what he said about go on the non-attendance days is fine.
So no need to do a survey or anything.
I don't think so.
Lisa?
I'm fine with that.
Fine with that.
yeah, I'd like to, yeah, I'm fine with that, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm good with it, the caveat, like, no kind of what the financial impact is if we just stick with what we got and absorb a couple days.
So fine with which one?
With the, absorb the April dates.
Oh,
I
two.
think everybody agreed that
Right.
April was okay. No need to do a survey about April versus June, because I think a lot of people are bailing out at the end of the year anyways. It'd be more of a hardship on people than.
When the kids check out.
Now, the one downside to April is, and I think the principals are gonna see this, is probably attendance issues, but maybe we're open, so,
But it's gonna happen anyway.
right.
You'd see it more in the.
Understood, understood, and teachers as well, so I'm sure teachers will be on.
So,
So
well, we'll have it on then as a consent. The board will have to approve this in February then.
Right,
Okay.
and the consent, though I would like, in a weekly update,
Yeah,
to know what the
weekly.
financial implications are if we don't change anything.
What if the implications are really low? Would that be,
We'll address that in February on the consent agenda.
we could do that then?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah, there's no action tonight, this is more information.
I know.
Okay. All right, the next item is any additional, this is our new recurring agenda item, any additional information requests for the administration?
So curriculum, in our December board meeting, we asked for the LA curriculum. We wanted to see it. We wanted to see what Melissa Sedgwick was providing when she started, and the curriculum for all LA in the middle school. I didn't realize this. Kristen received it, I guess, at the last meeting. So Mark told me Kristen had it. I actually looked through this, and if anyone else would like to, here you go. What I noticed was in here was grade level instructional resources, assessments, writing and speech assignments with some rubrics, a few worksheets, and a letter from Mrs. Sedgwick about what she did for her first few weeks of class. What I didn't see in here were outcomes, which Mark said were all online. Curriculum maps were not in here, pacing guides or calendars, scope and sequence, or vertical alignments. So I guess on behalf of the board, I'd like to request that, because that's actually part of the curriculum, and it's not included in any of these pages.
What
So-
about
so-
the resources, like the books and things?
Well, he has a
The
list
list is there?
of the novels that they read are here, and I think we've established
What about-
that there weren't any textbooks.
There are no textbooks.
No, that was also included in the list of things that they have. There's the William and Mary curriculum, there's.
Those aren't
a bunch of things.
textbooks, though, those are
Well,
novels.
I think
We had this.
So the resources have been provided, I think we're
Is that
where the gaps are. Right?
Grade K through 8, or what grade is
This
it?
was middle school only.
Just 5 through 8? That's the
5 through
entire
8.
curriculum.
So I guess what I'm hoping, because we asked for the curriculum, this really doesn't entail the curriculum. The curriculum would be the maps, the pacing guides, the scope and sequence, and the vertical alignment.
So can we do this, can you send that list to Mark? Mark, can you put that in, we've updated, everybody knows what's on the list. And then my view, and please counter me if I'm going off reservation here, but would be if these things don't exist in our world, just a quick explanation why we don't. Let's not manufacture documentation. You know, if it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. Let's just, you know, move on.
Does it exist digitally, though? I mean, that's a lot of papers. We have, I mean, I'm sure that those were typed
We
at
store,
one
we
point.
don't maintain the hard copy curriculum documents anymore because we manage them on SharePoint. And so they're all in different files. That's how we manage it. So we don't have like a curriculum binder simply because it doesn't make any sense to, you know, try to keep those updated.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you have them on SharePoint, don't you have them like in folders where you could just email it to her rather than
Well, it
print
took
all
one
of
to
it?
all of us, because we all
To all of
asked
us, I'm
for it.
sorry, that's my.
Well, it's not quite as easy as that because there's a lot of different versions of them and like curriculum maps are being updated and all of that. So when I get the requests, then I can,
About 1,000 sheets there.
My concern is that, I know you're saying they're being updated, but our teachers are teaching something now, right now, and they have to have a plan. So whatever's happening for going forward, I'm fine with, but what do we have now in relation to those elements? So whatever we have, if you could send those, that would be great.
And with Mrs. Sedgwick, you asked,
We specifically asked for what Mrs.
was
Sedgwick was
given to her,
provided by
not
the
a summary
district.
of what she's done,
Here's an example.
right?
We asked because she was a new teacher.
Right.
She was provided by the district day one when she showed up.
Okay, so we still want that.
that's in there.
No, Mrs. Sedgwick wrote a letter, which was a very nice letter, but it talked about what she did with her class, not what she was provided.
No, that was in regard to the workshop. If you look at the 6th grade above level, that's the list of the materials that she was provided.
I think we asked for the whole curriculum she was given, not the materials.
Okay, so there's, just to clarify, Kim, sounds like you got a very specific information request. Can you give those to Mark? Mark, most current versions of whatever she's looking for. And if they don't exist, just a quick explanation of why we don't use them. I think that makes it simple. The way we're not.
And we don't want teachers having to spend all their time putting this stuff together. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not.
Thank you,
Right.
Kristen.
And it should be, like, he should have a copy of the curriculum in
Right.
his office
That's
at
what
all
I-
times. I mean,
That's what we said. If it's
Okay, so
available, then the teachers don't
don't-
have
yeah.
to be
I
taking
don't
time
want
out of their
to be
instruction time to do it.
ask for more stuff. It should be in one spot.
Yeah, if it's not there, it's not there. It's
I
fine.
had asked for any communication that went out to the teachers in regard to the audit, and I guess it was just verbal, is that?
No, it was also to all staff members in the staff newsletter.
So would I be able to get a copy of that? Because I think I
I'll put it in the
requested
Friday
it.
packet.
And then, like, I'd like to just do a comparative, like to see what we've spent on Larry Huggins, because we're pushing 20,000 with him, and I don't recall us going out for an RFP or anything on him. So I'm just kinda curious as to where we're at with him, and are we having him back? Is he doing any more?
We don't have any specific training plan, but he may be back to train new staff as he does typically in August. That would be the next time he'd be back.
So that would be probably within a year, so we probably should
It's a
know.
new fiscal year, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
But regardless, you're,
Right.
it's valid, so.
so yeah, where we're at in expenditures with Larry Huggins.
Yeah, it keeps in mind what our for that position.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of motivational speakers there.
I have one.
Just a
Just,
thought.
I think we had talked about in November, getting a job description for the administrators. I just want to see where we're at in regards to that. So if we, I don't know who we've gotten, but if we could get up-to-date job descriptions, because that was requested, that would be wonderful.
And I think we're still waiting on, I'm sorry, I just
Okay,
can't
I'm
remember.
taking notes.
I think we're still waiting on an evaluation. Have requested at the last board meeting.
Correct, but if we were gonna have that, that would be a closed session.
Right.
So,
But I mean, we're waiting on that still.
Right.
So I just want to make sure he's got notation of it.
right, so one thing though, in regards to evaluations, I think by the new state law, or the state law that came in last year, is that principals have to be done by March 1st. And there's specific things I believe we have to evaluate them on. I think there's a state code that I can reference for you, Mark, but I just want to make sure that we have a rubric or something we can.
Well, last year I provided that whole thing to the board at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that being requested again?
Yeah, just please, so we know so we're not taken by surprise, and because it'll be the February meeting, I assume we do the formal. Or is that just something you do by March?
Right, it's something that I do.
Okay.
And then the last thing I have, and I requested it before, but I know we're talking about it next, at the next meeting. As a newer board member, I'd like to see a copy of the full strategic plan, and when the plan was created, why it was created, and what's been accomplished and what still needs to be accomplished.
Of the what?
Strategic plan. I've never seen it.
Wow.
And it seems frightening that being on the board, I don't really know what it is, so.
What's your wow?
I'm just thinking that, it was initially developed 10 years ago, and it was summarized in a few pages, and then it was publicized to the district in a trifold. And then that concerns me the least amount. I mean, I could send you, seriously, my entire folder that I have, it's electronic, from the partnerships committee I was on. It's just a zillion emails, okay? I'm less concerned with that than what was been done, because things have been done, and then they were like, okay, they're not warranted anymore, and then you move on, and it's like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though, is like, we wrote a strategic plan 10 years ago. Is it strategic anymore? Because clearly we've made progress on it. We've accomplished 10 things or 20 things or 50 things on there.
Mhm.
So what haven't we accomplished? What do we still need to accomplish? Because as a board, that should be our driving force, should be the strategic plan. Are we accomplishing our strategic plan? We haven't talked about it, not once, since I've been on the board since May, and I don't even know what's in it, aside from a pamphlet, but a pamphlet has very minor details in it compared to what a strategic plan is.
So I guess the question is the strategic plans that we have today, is it still relevant, and do we need to add an agenda item in the future?
Well, as part of the status report in February, typically with a new board, I'll go through the process, the history of it. Per Mark's point, there's a lot of historical documents. We've been through 3 cycles at least of action planning, so there was all those action plans. Kim, my understanding is that you didn't want, like, the original action plans and all of that occurred 11 years ago, or do you want all that?
Well, when I work with strategic plans in my job, we have a plan, and then we look at what we've accomplished, and then we focus on what we haven't, or there might be a reason we haven't accomplished it, but it's generally one document. If ours is additive, then I'd like to see how we've progressed, what's left, where we need to reach for, because the strategic plan should be driving our board goals even. And I don't even know what it is. And that's embarrassing to say. If someone in the community asks me what our strategic plan is, I have no idea.
I have no idea either. I've been on it 2 years, so.
Right now, what's current with the strategic plan, of course, there are all the components, the core values, the mission, the delimiters, the objectives, and then we have 3 strategies. And there was one strategy where 3 plans were developed, and that's what's currently being implemented. Now, that will be all in the board packet and explained, but I need to get clarification so I know your condition of satisfaction. Do you want me to resurrect all the previous action plans that took place over 11 years? Because
Right, because what you have, Kim, is what you have is a review was done, I'm going to guess here, okay, 6 years ago, by the core team, and we went through the original strategic plan, and it accomplished everything, up to and including reporting, because we modified the report cards. Then, there was like take a year off, make sure that nothing breaks, and then we got back together, and it wasn't probably, I'm gonna use the word even though it might be wrong, it wasn't probably as invasive, but new action items were established. And those are what we're in the process of, you know, when something gets accomplished, the next time we meet, because it meets annually, and sometimes twice a year, Catherine's not here.
Last week.
We're
What's that?
meeting next in September, I think, or in the fall. We just
Right,
met
right.
last week.
Right, and that's what, sometimes it's twice a year and sometimes it's once.
This year it's once.
And then it's, you know, if something needs to be added, something needs to be added. For instance, you know, the curriculum assistance was the big thing the last time that we
Right.
got together.
I get it. I guess then I must have a different definition of a strategic plan, because the strategic plan that I work with looks forward and says, we want to be here in 5 years.
Right.
We've already met that, you said like 6 years ago or
No,
whatever.
no. That's our ultimate goal.
That's our mission,
So that never
but our
changes.
mission isn't our
Right.
strategic plan.
But that's, no, but our strategic plan are all the actions that try to obtain that mission.
Okay, I know.
And that has
I know
evolved
that.
over time in terms
And
of.
right now, we're working on the pacing, setting and monitoring the pacing, that's what we're working on as part of the strategic plan,
Right.
relative to workload and staffing and.
Initiatives.
Yeah,
But we would do that, but my point is, we would do that anyway without a strategic plan. A strategic plan generally doesn't address, today we're going to do this. It looks forward and says, as a district, we want to be here by 2016.
But that's what we've been doing.
But
Because
we're not-
it sets the, I mean, we've seen these, it sets what we're going to do, what the objective is, what we're going to do, and then how we're going to get there, the action items. And we're still currently working on that now, it's not a boom, we're gonna fix it today. I mean, does anybody have a copy of that pamphlet?
So the
I've
original,
seen the
so
pamphlet.
the
That's on
thing of the
strategic
pamphlet
plan.
plus the most recent action plan, it sounds like.
Well, I've seen both of those, and neither of those are strategic plans. So, that's fine. We could table this, because I could argue it all day long, and a pamphlet is never a strategic plan, just by definition. It's
Well, I
not a
think the
plan.
pamphlet was to simplify it, to make it
Send it out.
easy
It was a
for the
marketing
community
piece.
to read it.
Right.
It wasn't to turn around and give them, you know,
No, I get the
11 years
point
of
it.
documentation
I
this
get the
big.
point of it.
And strategic plans change.
Strategic plans do change
Correct.
over time, right.
Right.
Strategic
But at
plans generally
school,
don't
it
last
doesn't
11
because
years.
it's always centered around the students.
No.
How to
that's not
get
true.
them, well, that's fine, but, you know,
There's strategic plan cycles generally.
and I could debate that, you know, being business versus being in a school are two different things as well. I'm not trying to reinvent myself,
No.
I'm trying to maintain a certain,
I know, I guess the
A
point is
certain goal with
times
students.
change for education too. So like Common Core, 5 years ago, should have been in our strategic plan, so we had a path to get there.
We didn't
we
know.
did, we
that-
went down the higher level order of thinking and it got shot down by the district. Okay, so we did talk about
tried
that
to get there.
in our strategy.
Okay.
We did try to implement that, and some of the same people that are on the board today shot it down 4 or 5 years ago. So how far do you want to take the conversation?
And
No,
5 years ago,
all
we
I'm
didn't
saying,
even know
I
if it
don't
was
know
gonna
that
get
as a board
implemented.
member. That's my
Understood.
point, right?
Understood.
So how would I know this? How do I know how we're gonna leave the district if I haven't seen it?
And that's where Mark said you want to see everything from the beginning of time, which I think dates back to 2001.
Right.
Yeah, and I would, what I would offer, I mean, I will go over some of the history when we have
Perfect,
the
that's
update.
fine.
But what I would certainly offer, and I think it would be very informative, Kim or Gina, or really any board member, is to meet with you to go through all the documents, what has been accomplished, how we got to this point. I think you'd find it to make sense.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and unless there's anything else, let's move on beyond this one.
We have to vote on, approve the information request.
Do you want me to make the recommendation?
I'd like to hear them again.
Yeah, can you summarize them?
Can I, since I'm the one who's going to be doing
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
information request consists of what was communicated in the staff newsletter regarding the audit, position descriptions for administrators, and pacing charts for middle school language arts curriculum. Is that correct, Kim?
No, it was,
Hang on one second, I'm just.
You're gonna have a specific list you're sending.
I'm gonna give you the list of what.
The overall middle school language arts curriculum, that's overall what you want, right?
Curriculum maps, pacing guides, scope and sequence, vertical alignment.
Are all these things priority one, we've asked for? Do they need to be done by the next meeting, or is there a time kind of window we want to receive them by?
Well, the job description should be already done, I mean, it's part of one of our policies, so I think it's already done. If we have it, we have it, so we should
I
have it.
believe I already disseminated those to the board, but I can do it again. I think there was a request back in May or April.
We were missing yours, Mark.
Now, as I mentioned, I have the mutual commitments, there's no superintendent position description, position descriptions called mutual commitments.
But we also have a board policy that every employee of the district needs to have a job
So-
description.
So the information request is for the job descriptions. We have a gap in the job description, right?
Right, I guess we're
So-
asking to create.
Okay, well, that's not on the agenda today. This is information request. Okay, if we want to
I understand.
print out in February, we can, but the issue here is we have information requests for specific things. All right, what else? Is everything?
Gina, you have one or two?
I think Gina's was
I thought you
covered.
wrote it down.
The communication
Well,
about the audit.
The audit communication was one, and the Larry Huggins, where we're at in expenditures, and what we've received as far as how many days.
And the evaluation rubric for principals.
So is that,
Oh, it's closed session, right, sorry.
I mean, talk about it.
Or even
more,
10%.
close session.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so I make a motion to approve the information request as stated.
I will make the motion to approve the information request as stated.
Thank you. I second it. Let's do the vote.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tegmeyer? Mrs. Valente?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker?
Yes.
Mrs. Hope? Mr. Mobley?
yes.
Mr. Gilman?
Yes.
The only thing that we didn't give, Mark, was the when, because you asked the when, are all these priority ones? And that's
Right.
something we did not. What's that?
You're right.
That's the only thing, and then right away you jumped in with the descriptions, and that was addressed, and then,
Well, tomorrow I can have the position descriptions, the communication to the staff, and the Larry Huggins expenditures, but I don't believe I can have the LA pacing charts and vertical alignment, scope and sequence information. So there's just additional time for that.
What's a reasonable period of time for that?
I'd like to see it by next board meeting, since we originally requested it in December.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right, as far as the next step is open forum. Anyone still here that should address the board? Please
I
introduce
will
yourself.
I'm Julie Ryan. I don't want to stand up, so. I came to listen about the emergency days based on some feedback from some people. I did read something about minutes, and so maybe we're not on the minutes like that. I just mostly want to say that some of the school districts in the area chose to do the late start. It does look like more bad weather is coming, and obviously if we only have to make up 5 and it's only going to put one more day, but maybe consider having a late start instead of closing a whole day of school. If there is more bad weather to come, which probably is, since it's still January and we are still in Chicago, so.
Don't depress us.
If
Yeah.
one school, if
That would be
the,
it for me.
Mark, if the LT decides to do it, everybody does it,
No.
correct?
Because Western Springs did not close on Tuesday. No, because their superintendent said if he had to do it over again, he would have closed, he would have kept the school open Monday as well. But they were looking at like a snow forecast coming through, so they weren't really sure where they were. But Tuesday, all the District 101 schools were in session.
But they were the only feeder school that decided to do
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, LT was closed, right? Were they closed?
I
I don't know.
I
Yes.
think
Yes.
they
But-
used it at
I
this
think they
time.
were usually.
101 was in session. Do they bus? Apparently they do. That's what a mom on the P3 told me, that they do bus. Some kids, not everybody. Most are neighborhood schools. I mean, you would know because you live there,
All right,
but,
this is off the agenda.
Yes.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Julie.
All right,
Yeah,
at this point, I need a motion to move to closed session.
They have construction that's
I move that the Board of Education moves into closed session at 8:36 PM to discuss appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, dismissal of personnel.
Second.
Mrs. Galante?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker?
Yes.
Mrs. Hope?
Yes.
Mr. Mobley?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tegmark?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.